remind people Jack's not unspoiled.
Oh, thank you. Hi, welcome. This is the Patron hangout and discussion of our Mrs. Reynolds. As I knew it was up there someplace. Yeah, I think we're nearing at or are at the halfway point of our group Firefly rewatch. So before we get going, this is the discussion group for anyone in the $5 and up tier on Patreon who cares to join in and chat about the episode or whatever, really. There are people in this discussion who have, the rule of thumb that we go by for spoilers is there are people in this discussion who have not finished the show. And even though it's impossible to completely avoid spoilers for, especially in this community, although I think we're a pretty good community when it comes to spoilers. I don't mean Passion of the Nerd. I mean Whedonverse content. We all know the big lines. But anyway, the ADD meds are apparently wearing off, so shorter is better. See, I already lost my train of thought, so we're just going to stop there. I'm going to go over to Harris, but all I request is please avoid spoilers where you can for anything past this particular episode. And Bob's your uncle, or maybe it's Kevin. All right. Harris.
Hi, Ian.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Yeah, not terrible. This is the first one of these I've joined where I didn't watch the live stream prior with you guys because I was actually LARPing in a forest. So I've gone straight from being a goblin for 3 hours in a forest in the dark to this Zoom call and trying to shift my brain pattern over. But I did catch up in there. There was an hour gap between me getting home and this thing here starting. So I did catch up on the stream and the episode.
Well, I've talked about, by the way, I'm getting a little bit of an echo if you can turn your speakers down slightly. I've talked about, with Safe how that particular episode doesn't necessarily have a strong, for me personally, it does not have a really strong identity. I watch it and I go, oh, this is all really good. But we said it's kind of loosey-goosey, doesn't hang together as very specific. And then with Bushwhacked is essentially two different episodes, one of which is a horror movie and the other one which is a fun sort of Ocean's 11 rompy interrogation movie. Our Mrs. Reynolds does not suffer from that problem. So I would guess that even though, and the hangouts aren't particularly or rather the rewatches Jack and I do aren't particular. I wouldn't call them educational, more of a community exercise we do. So yeah, our Mrs. Reynolds to me stands out as maybe one of the first really super memorable episodes on the show. Would you agree with that, or where does it? Tell me about the episode for you. Where do you land on this one?
It's definitely goosey. Maybe not in the sense that you meant, in the sense that there's a lot of mentions of geese throughout the episode, which is my chosen image of the week.
Oh yes.
Because there's definitely a lot of lines in this. I mean, as we all know, Firefly is an extremely quotable TV show, but this in particular is one. It also has my favorite blooper in where Adam Baldwin says, "Damn it, Mal, I forgot my line," and I never get that blooper out of my head because that's my favorite Firefly blooper, and pops even my favorite blooper of all time because it's just so deadpan delivered. I love it. Yeah, this episode actually probably isn't one of my. I don't know. I'm not a fan of ranking stuff, but I don't think I'd probably put it as one of my watches. Maybe just personal taste. I don't. As a person, I'm not that into blue humor in this episode.
Blue humor.
Humor to do with, amongst other things, sex, body, nudity.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and this is heavy on that. For sure. Well, the interesting thing to me is that definitely Whedon, part of Whedon's shtick is a lot of his humor is very sexualized. I was thinking of the other day when we were watching this episode. I thought of Restless. and the bit in Restless in that's kind of notorious now, where we talk about media analysis, is in Willow's dream, she walks out of the frame and is gone from the shot, and Xander says, sometimes I think about doing a spell, two women doing a spell, and then I do a spell by myself. And it's very characteristic. It struck me, it's a good joke, but it struck me as very characteristic of Whedon to shoehorn in a masturbation joke somewhat inappropriately in Willow's a gay woman's dream off on her when she's not even in the shot and it's not a part of her perspective anymore. So it's interesting to me. I like hearing your take on it, is what I'm trying to say.
I guess what I did like about the episode, I think maybe more so than other episodes, is a lot more. It's more internalized in terms of the family dynamic. This episode, I think, focuses more on the crew as a family. So we get to see how they all individually react to Mal's predicament. It's a bit more of a kind of a comedy of errors in that situation. But even like before Saffron comes into play, the cold opening is each of the characters kind of being at a party, and then like throughout episode, even when Saffron's not the focus of the scene, it's different characters bouncing off each other's. I mean, they do it for the entire show, obviously, but I think this is more. It's not a well, is it a bottle episode? I guess it is.
Is it a what?
Bottle episode.
Oh,
sorry.
bottle episode.
I guess you can, as far as Firefly has those and doesn't have those. Most of the action happens on the set, so it's more how they bounce off of.
Well, it's funny. I noticed when they cut to the two guys who are handling the net. For me, the episode grinds to a halt. It feels so unnecessary referencing that external conflict when so much of this could have just been. When so much of what is excellent about this episode is everyone playing off of each other and the slice of life on the ship bits that you're talking about, as opposed that external driving conflict doesn't feel necessary.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I agree with you. It's definitely like an afterthought threat thing to kind of wrap it up rather than it being the focus. It's not. I don't think it's what everyone kind of brings up about the episode. But I do love the whole. You said it in the live stream. Oh no, actually, I think it was Jack who maybe said it about it not being a big action finale. It was like a clever use of the suit and that kind of set. I did like that kind of finale episode.
In terms of the writing structure, the writing structure for setting up the gun, like not Chekhov's gun in this particular case, but setting up Vera in a joke early on, and then actually having that circle back around and be meaningful later in the story, I think is really well done. I do appreciate the structure of this one for sure. Anyway, I interrupted you. I apologize.
Oh, that's okay. I think River has probably the least to do in this episode than she does the entire series. I know there's like a cut. I don't know if deleted scenes count as spoilers or not. I don't know if you know about what I'm referring to. But I know she has like a B plot that's cut.
She does. I don't think it's a spoiler. I don't know the scene though. I'll trust your judgment.
It's nothing massive. And you can see why it's cut. It's basically River having observed this kind of comedy of errors between Mal and Saffron, tries to convince Buck to get her and Salmon married, and they have to explain to River why that's not appropriate.
Oh, interesting.
It's a bit of a weird scene, yeah. That's a deleted scene. I think so. She has any dialogue in the.
I don't think she has a line in the episode. Now that I think about it,
which it might be. Is that like her only episode where she doesn't have a speaking role? I noticed that. I guess that's all the points I had of the few that I did.
Oh yeah. I'm interested though. You just told me you don't like ranking stuff, so I was about to ask you what's your favorite episode, favorite episode or two of the show. But if you don't have an answer,
my favorite is Ariel.
Ariel?
My favorite is Ariel. We'll get to Ariel when we get to Ariel. But
all right,
that's definitely my favorite.
All right, good deal. All right, but I appreciate you. Let's go on to I forgot how to do all the stuff and things. Let's go over to Sara C. And then we'll go to Sara E.
Honestly, I'm still like stewing on my thoughts. Can I have like one more second? Like one
All
more
right.
person?
We'll go to Sara E, and then we'll
Is
go to
that
Sara
okay?
C. Yes,
Thank
of course
you.
it's fine.
I'm still putting this together. Okay.
Hello.
Hiya.
Hi. How do I? So I just want to highlight when we were talking before we opened up the meeting, I was talking about how I this sweater is warm and easy and keeps me warm, but I find it ridiculous because this collar's popped all the time, and I feel like I'm trying very hard. And Jack said, "Yeah, you look like you're about to go play some lacrosse." And Sara says, "Well, coach lacrosse." Which I thought was a nice dunk, so thank you.
I didn't really mean it as a dunk. It just kind of came out. Look, we are both at the age we're more likely to be. Well, nobody would want me coaching anything. But
I think I said to Jack, I don't know if you can call it a dunk if it just smacks of truth.
It's a perfectly fine sweater. It is a little preppy, but you know.
So I know that you're in at the other. Well, I don't. Tell me about our Mrs. Reynolds.
Well, your lack of verbiage is kind of a reflection of my response the first time I saw Christina Hendricks. This episode is kind of a very special one to me because this was one of those I think I might be bi like just Willow popping up. I think I might be gay. Yeah,
I think I'm kind of gay.
Yeah, I think I might be kind of bi because she is just amazing and just so incredibly inhumanly beautiful, but also like because when I know that this is an act, then I just really enjoy the act.
Yeah, I think that's I was going to say in particular with the scene for me that stands out as just I'm lacking the proper words, but I know I'm watching something. And it's tough to look away from. In particular is Saffron and Inara. When the jig has already been revealed, the scene between the two of them is just dripping with raw power. They're
playing. They're having
and they're playing. Fun. Yeah, exactly.
And I think that's to me what makes it so sexy is that it is a game. And it's sort of she's trolling. Whedonverse has a thing about sexualizing the innocent girly thing. Like that's why I think there is no river in It's a Little River in here, because it would show through you wouldn't be able to not see that he treats River, that Joss treats River sort of in the sexualizing the innocent girliness of it. And in River's case, like the innocence is genuine.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this must have been written by the other writers, because there is such a sense of trolling that way that Whedon and men like him sexualize the innocent wafy girls. To see this strong woman mock the fuck out of that, just use it.
Yeah, including the Whedon archetype. There's the Xander. It's probably Wash, where it was Xander in the last one, or in the last one in Buffy. So to see it subverted feels self-aware. You're saying it feels self-aware in a way that we haven't seen, and so makes it feel unlikely that it was completely done by him.
Yeah, I don't know. On the other hand, like it's hard to say if this is a mocking or what level um of sort of um subverting to like where the line of parody becomes, because there are it could be read literal, and like that they're sexualizing the innocent girliness, but I think the fact that it is uh you know is a game makes it not. And I think there's a thing, like, this is not the first time that there's been a scene in a Whedonverse show where like the guy is portrayed as a good guy for resisting the woman trying to seduce him.
Well, it reminds me of Bewitched, Bothered, and Bewildered. The bit with, although in that case you're dealing with magical roofies as opposed to something else. But Xander definitely gets a congratulations at the end of that episode that I wasn't happy with.
That case, that's so icky. Like,
right.
There's
it feels icky.
That's spoiled by the thank you for not. Yeah, no.
I also remember that you didn't.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's I think I feel like there's a self-awareness and a parody thing that is making it fun. But there's also like the thing that they're playing with is a real thing that makes me think about some of the icky moments we've had before.
Yeah.
And it makes me think about the ickiness of the way that I feel that they frame River, and that a lot of the fan base looks at River, because she is played as very ingenue, very little girly, especially with the way that her like idiot savant thing is played up. To have the kind of like weird mix of innocence and worldliness, but that's kind of weird. But in this case, because it's the subversion of that with the totally worldly, playing off the fact that these men like to want to feel big and strong with the little girl. Like, I don't know, I kind of love it. It's kind of hard to describe to why I can love this, that I feel is mocking the thing, while also watching the shows that include the thing,
Yeah, well, I mean, it's another thing we were talking about off the air is sort of not wanting to throw away all the good, but needing, simply because there are things we need to acknowledge. I believe Lani calls it removing the venom. Is the process of is what we're doing by acknowledging the things that we see now and no longer work. And the two references were Big and and John Hughes movies was the other one that we were talking about. And occasionally the things age poorly enough that they're we're just not able to revisit them anymore. But I don't think anything that we've talked about to this point completely falls under that umbrella.
Yeah.
Does that make any sense?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think there's maybe some episodes that, if we look
sure.
all of Buffy, some episodes that are kind of spoiled by the factor. There are of Angel. But I still just enjoy this one. It is kind of a sexy romp. It's got that very sort of 12th Night deception within a deception kind of.
Yeah, I never completely shake my Beatrice and Benedict vibe with Inara and Mal, and so 12th Night's a wonderful connection with this. It definitely has that similar flavor of play that is just so much fun.
And I appreciate that Zoe is there, sort of appreciating what's funny, but also holding the line on what's not.
Oh, with Mal and yeah.
That yes, it's all fun and games, but also like you also like no, I am not gonna make you homemade stuff.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's another. There are constant mirrors throughout. I love Ron Glass in this episode too. I mean, the special hell is an icon from the show for a reason, and in part his delivery, but just having the. If you're gonna have any fun with this, you have to show that you're aware of where the line is, right?
Yeah.
And structuring that through the characters is kind of the perfect way to do it, for sure.
And I love Wash being so utterly in love with Zoe. It's just really adorable.
Yeah, when that sequence starts, there's always the first time I watched that, I'm like, do they know where the line is? Do they know where the line? Okay, there's the line. The writing found the line. Him backing away and her having to kick him in the head instead. I'm like, all right, that works for me. Yeah. But I feel like if this had been written 10 years before or 15 years before, there would have been a kiss in that particular sequence. And now, the relationship between Wash and Zoe just feels much more solid and true to life and accurately represented in that way, because they like that the boundary doesn't get crossed in that way. So
yeah, it's such a stable relationship. They were always gonna anyway.
But, yeah, well, in Whedonverse, you got to wonder at what point the relationship would have ended had there been more seasons, because no one gets to stay happy in the Whedonverse.
Yeah.
The longest running relationship is what? Xander and Anya? There are no Wesley.
And that is not a functional relationship.
That's not a functional relationship. I don't know how long Fred and Gunn went for. Half a season?
Not long enough, because that was a functional relationship.
Right. Yeah. Xander and Anya being although I love the way, I do love the, anyway, this isn't Buffy. Is there anything else you want to throw out about our Mrs. Reynolds?
Yeah, it's just, I wish Christina Hendricks had gotten more work, and it is ridiculous that to their mind she was a plus size woman, that it seems so strange to bring on, and it's like, no, she's not even the average size woman.
Right. Yeah. Casting is oh, don't Harris says, don't do this to us, Ian. I don't want to accept that Zoe and Wash would have fallen out, and I don't care how right I are about the speculation. That's my bad. I apologize. Zoe and Wash are forever. Mm-hmm. In the 10 seasons of Firefly they would have been all the way to the end.
There's only one kind of forever in the Whedonverse.
All right, my friend.
Yeah, I think that's what I got. I just love
right.
This episode.
Good deal. Let me go to Sara C, and then I'll go over to Jen. Are we ready? All right.
Yeah, I almost wish, I know you can hear me, right?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Fantastic. I almost wish we were doing like the kind of round table discussion we did a little while ago, because like I am so curious to hear everyone's, I mean, specifically Sara's, but just like thoughts on, like, to put it like broadly, like the feminism of this episode, or just what it is even happening, in the sense of like it portrays her, like initially she plays up the like victimhood of like, I was going to be married to a horrible, ugly man,
Are you going to kill me? She asks him in the engine room.
But you know what I mean? But she's using whatever that as her ammo, right? But it's like, and let's pretend that was the case. What would have been the thing to do in that case, right? Even though they like clown on it, right? Like that's interesting. And then the fact that she's using that presumption of powerlessness as like to victimize him. Like there's a lot of interesting things that I just kind of wish we could sit here and just like talk about, but I just think it's really interesting of just like how like it feels watching it evolve. Like, when you see her turn and I'm Malcolm Reynolds' widow or whatever, I guess you see it before, but it's like, how does that feel? Like, does that feel vindicated? Like I knew something was up, or like, does it feel disappointing? It's just interesting, right? Because you have Mal starts to sort of like feel good and like I'm like giving you a good old pat on the back, like saving you, but like without taking advantage. You know what I mean? Like there feels like a self, like not ingratiating, but you know what I'm talking about? Like it starts to feel like, man, I'm
self-congratulatory.
A little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, there's just a lot of really interesting just interplay here, like with and I love all the crew reactions, like versus the ones who were just like, this is hilarious, and like Zoe and Inara for their own reasons, but are that like a little bit put off by it or put off by him, just like, well, she wanted to make me dinner, like who am I to argue?
Well, in the attention she's working to get works and gets their attention, and so are you saying there's a hint of?
I just think there's a lot of interesting power dynamics.
Oh yeah, yeah, very much so.
That's not a thesis, but I think it's neat. I mean, this is an episode when I think of Firefly, like this is like one of the first ones that comes to mind is like that I get excited to watch. Like versus something like Safe, or even for me like Bushwhacked. Like it's just fun, it's funny, and I like that it's sort of too, like the episode changes halfway through and it goes from like a goofy gag romp to like a little, there's an increased tension, or like it just switches styles and tones midway through, and I like that.
Well, I think too, the thing I was trying to say to Harris was that it definitely feels like, and partly by virtue of the bodily aspect of it, is it feels like it has an identity, a very strong, specific identity, where maybe that has not been so to the point. I mean, the train job's close because it all centers around the train job. It has a very specific, it has a singular focus to it in the way this does, but it's so in the afterlife of the airing of the show, repetitive of all the beats that are in Serenity already. So to me, this is the first one that sort of, episodes like Band Candy and the Zeppo and all of that explore kind of the outer reaches of what the stories you can tell with these characters and this universe and all of that. And this feels like a first attempt at pushing the boundaries, because we could do cowboy subversion Western tales over and over again. This feels like something new, while still being familiar in a Shakespearean sort of way, that I really enjoy. Whatever you think of the Whedon of it all, which he's definitely the dirtiest writer of the bunch. Never above shoehorning a masturbation joke into something. That's for certain. But anyway,
or the entire scene with her and him in his like cabin,
right?
It just goes on and on. That was when I was watching it. This is when I started regretting that I had decided to watch it with my dad. I was just like, okay, is it over yet?
Yeah. Yeah, that's there are Whedon stamps all over it. For
I mean, I remember what I want to say. I mean, it's playing with the like Born Sexy Yesterday of it all, but then is like, and I don't even know if it's challenging it. I can't find the word for what it's doing, but it's like it's doing something with Born Sexy Yesterday. I think maybe it is a little bit,
well, it's parody or it's subversion, but it's definitely one of the two. Sara thinks it's there's parody to it. But at the very least, it definitely feels subversive.
Yeah, there's a lot that I like. I like how it brings out a lot of the crew's personalities, like inadvertently. It's almost like sitcom-y of like you introduce this new actor and then you see, right, you get washes you find out things about Wash, like his undying loyalty to his wife. You get a little bit of Inara's craftiness, which I really like. Like, this makes me like Inara a great deal. That she's smart. Like,
Yeah.
she's like up here, which I really like. You get stuff from Zoe. It's just you get Jane's opportunism and whatever materialism or what have you. I think it's neat. Like, I have a ton of fun with it.
Yeah.
So.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to throw out about the episode?
I certainly do not think so.
All right, good deal. Well, let me go over to Jen, and then we'll go to Jack. Hi.
Hey, Ian.
How you doing?
It's going.
All right, it's a good deal. Well, tell me about the episode, our Mrs. Reynolds. A few points thrown out so far, but anything you want to pick up from? Where does this one land for you?
This is actually an episode that I really don't like.
Interesting. Okay, tell me more about it.
Well, let's compare it to Bushwhack, which is that's an episode that I can ignore the things that, like, the horror elements until they get to, like, the interrogation scenes, which I really like on the ship. This one doesn't balance out well. I can't ignore, because this episode's a whole thing, and I can't ignore the parts that just don't work for me and focus on and balance it. And there's not enough over good stuff to balance out the stuff that just doesn't work for me. There's a lot in this episode that doesn't work for me.
Okay.
The whole timing thing, the other crew, the two guys that we only just escape. We don't deal with anything with them. So the shots to the side. We don't see how we catch up with the girl again. Not really. It's a whole bunch of. It moves quick. It doesn't. There's a lot going on. We have all the characters teasing, and they all disappear. Like,
you're talking about
Zoe leaves. No, we don't deal with her and Saffron. Like, and things like that. A lot of the Kylie disappears midway through the episodes. Like, a lot of the characters just disappear throughout this episode, except for a one-liner or whatever.
It's a very small ship.
Yeah, this episode just doesn't work for me. It doesn't balance well for me.
Okay. Is there anything you like about the episode? Best lines, best parts?
Yeah, there is stuff to like about this episode. This is not a Go Fish.
Sure. I mean, the thing that I've realized as we've been talking about Firefly is I don't think there is a bad episode of Firefly. And there are bad episodes of Angel and bad episodes of Buffy. And 13 episodes and a movie. There just wasn't the potential to develop that kind of thing. But it still feels remarkable to me because half a season the first season of Buffy is half a season. And I didn't find the love for that until I was already done writing about it in the episode guide. So I still find it remarkable, but yeah, like, Firefly is pretty strong regardless.
Okay, one of the things I don't like, I get that Inara and Mel have their whole thing going on, but it is very clear right away that Mel does not like the situation. He's not happy with it. So her stupid jealousy throughout this episode is just annoying. Honestly, it doesn't suit well with the character.
Well, you're talking about the way she's immediately jealous.
Yep.
As soon as
continues to be jealous for a good portion of this episode.
I will say,
the kiss feels so forced in this episode.
I will say the jealousy definitely always felt unusually on the nose for Inara's character. Unusually catty in a way that we don't see her be very often throughout the show. So I think I agree with you.
There's other episodes that makes more sense, but not this one. Like, you've got the crew teasing him like no tomorrow, which would make sense. This crew would do this, but personally, Why isn't Book trying to get her alone and figuring out what to do with her? Like, there's a lot of
Yeah,
things
that's an
going
interesting
on.
point.
Like, why is not Inara trying to pull her aside and like set her straight? Like, none of the female characters are trying to clue in what is supposed to, at this point when they first introduce this born sexy yesterday girl, like the trope. So why are not one of the female characters or one of the male characters? Hell, you've already. I hate that I blank names when I'm in the middle of discussion.
Oh, I do the
The
same
doctor.
thing too. Simon.
Yeah, why isn't Simon just pulling her aside? Like, at this point, she seems like a perfect companion for River when you first introduce her to the group. So why isn't Simon pulling her aside to the infirmary and just getting her checked out at bare minimum? Like, he's a doctor. He should be saying, she just entered the ship. Maybe we should have a medical scan on her just to be safe. Like, something. Like, there's a lot going on, and it doesn't. A lot of the characters do not feel in character in
Okay.
this episode.
Yeah, I get it. I get it. I'm trying to think of. To me, you're also partially describing the characteristics of a romp, in a way, and I'm trying to think of other.
This is a romp. It is very much a romp,
Yeah.
which is why this also works, and it's a good episode for an episode of TV. It just, if you're actually following where all the characters are and their progression of their storylines at this point, this episode either need to be like episode 2, or when we don't know the characters as well, or it needed to be further down the line when you've established, especially the Melon and our relationship better, so that jealousy would make more sense. And it still doesn't for this episode. Like, he plainly is not interested in her in that way. He plainly is not happy about this supposed marriage. So the jealousy again makes no sense for this episode. I do like, though, I like the fact that Nara and her started companioning against each other. I did like that.
Yeah, that's a wonderful scene.
I would have liked to see Saffron pull something with Zoe. You see her with Wash, but you don't see her really interact with Zoe. And I would have preferred to see her interact with Zoe.
Yeah, it's interesting. You can kind of have a sense of how every character would play off of Saffron's shtick. But except for Zoe, now that you point out Zoe, I do wonder how Zoe's character would have reacted to, because the way Saffron goes at Inara, is that going to work on Zoe? What is Saffron's attempted manipulation of Zoe? That definitely would have been interesting. It would have been nice to see in the story.
As I said, this episode, it's weirdly like you don't have the girls interacting enough. A lot happens, and you've got these side characters that we barely see, and they're only there to set up the trap. You could have just had her off the ship waiting there at the teleport.
Yeah, I don't think you need the two guys off the ship at all. That was the one thing I noticed on this. Even if they just see the net and shoot at the thing, and you keep the deal with the two guys coming out in the vacuum of space, we really didn't need to cut away to the two guys on the trap in the way that we did. That I definitely agree with.
But I'll pass this on to someone else. I think I've said my piece for this episode.
All right, good deal. Jack.
Hello, Poppet.
Actually, before we get going, why don't we take a 5-minute break?
Cool.
I'm going to mute myself. I will be right back with you.
We can vamp.
Well, I was thinking specifically, Sara C presented a question. I don't know if you guys want to talk about the thing. I really liked what you talked about the last time. Pluggy plugs for stuff you've been enjoying lately. But this part of the conversation, all yours, of course. I'll be right back.
I don't know. Yeah, no, I don't know, Sarah, because it's like a subversion because she's self-aware, but also it's written by a man.
Yeah, I saw your comment. Yeah, it's just interesting, right? Because it's like there's the stuff that she says, right, could be said legitimately by someone, right? Like, oh, you know, I could have been married off, you know, without a choice to a terrible abusive man, like, right? Like there, you know, realistically, and then, you know, obviously he's her mark, he's her victim, and
Yeah.
you know, and she's used that as her power. I mean, I simply I don't, you know what I mean, like I don't have like a conclusion or an analysis per se, but it's just something that always
Nor do
comes to
I.
mind
I
of
think
like how do I feel about her, you know?
yeah, I think
Like how do you feel about Saffron, I guess, like I'm pretty general.
how do I mean, I'm clouded because my feelings on Saffron are
Besides you know, hot woman, how do you feel about Saffron the
which means
character?
I don't know, for some reason I kind of short circuit on having
That's
a
fair.
you know,
I mean,
What-
and taken with context of like, I always think about the scene in Trash when he's like, they have that like supposed heart to heart in the thing, and then he's like, "You're a snake. You're a beautiful snake."
Remember,
Um,
Jack's here. Yep,
Oh.
Jack is not seen the series.
I have not,
yeah,
Sorry.
but that's okay.
he
I
knows
was-
The other-
information I sort of hinted about, but other than that, he's unspoiled.
Well,
I know.
I guess
The
I
other
know.
thing,
The only thing I'm totally spoiled on is a leaf on the wind. I know that happens.
oh well, I mean that's the worst one. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's the thing that bothers me. Is just like it's literally like the worst thing in the series. To
Like
be
honestly,
spoiled
when
on.
I think when I think about spoilers, like there's not like a ton, and that's the only one that like I'm sorry, man.
It's a big moment. It's a big moment. Yeah.
Yeah. That
Whatever.
sucks.
It's
Do you know how it happens? Maybe at least you'll be surprised in that.
I saw a screenshot, I think, but I think it's he appears to be flying the ship, so
Okay, you will
Yeah.
trust me when I tell you, Jack, that when you see that scene,
Mhm.
it does not matter that you know that it's going to happen. When you see that
Okay.
scene,
Fair.
you will understand why it's
Okay.
it.
Fair enough.
When I saw the movie, that was one of the things that had the biggest impact on me.
Mhm.
The other one is something that I definitely hope you don't get spoiled for because it's
Okay.
huge.
Okay.
And I wish they'd had the space to do it in the series
I
because it would have been
I
amazing.
just assume it's got something to do with crashing the ship, but I don't know. And I'm not going to
we will
dig any
not
further into that.
confirm or deny anything.
Yes,
Yeah.
no,
Yeah,
we're
it's
not
well-
going to.
I
We're not-
return to just please finish what you're saying.
It's like we do know that he doesn't let people have happy relationships, and that he has a tendency to kill characters.
Yeah, of course,
Well,
yeah.
So
what do y'all think of Saffron? Saffron.
I like her in her other episode better. Saffron for me, like I enjoy her more now that I've seen the episode more than once
Mhm.
because I enjoy the subterfuge of her. I enjoy the masterful performance that is being played because it's unassailable.
Yeah.
yeah,
When I initially saw the episode for the first time, and up until you have the night, sweetie, it was
Mhm.
like, oh my God, what is happening right now? What? No, no, no. This is like oil and water right now. And then you get the night, sweetie, and it's kind of like bored now.
Yeah.
yeah,
I
exactly.
forgot
It works
the thing.
because it's a game.
Yeah, that for me was the biggest piece of it, is that it's what makes it tolerable is that it's a game. If they had played it straight the entire way through, it would have been awful.
Yeah, yeah. It's the playing with the power dynamics that makes it fun.
Yeah.
It's the fact that it
That's-
is
yeah.
role playing, not an actual innocent ingenue who.
And honestly, like, I'm kind of embarrassed for Mal because, like, to me, from the beginning, she's laying it on so thick that I'm like, okay, like, what is? Are you gonna kill me? Like, what?
Like,
what are we doing?
Is there even a maiden house in that?
It's
like,
so, you know what I mean?
much...
Like, it's so like.
You notice though, she doesn't initially lay it on that thick. It's the fact that he keeps telling her no, that she lays on heavier and heavier.
But to me, that even more
thing with Wash. When he says no the first time, she starts going heavier.
But to me, like, that still comes across like so engineered. Like her whole like weird erotic speech about the stars. It's just like, what are you doing? What's happening?
Like, yeah, you asked what her scene with Zoe would be. There would be no scene with Zoe because she's not that stupid.
They couldn't, because like she can't seduce Zoe. She can't like do the like, oh, I'm so meek. Zoe'd be like, what the fuck?
She wouldn't do it. She knows who she's going. She's very selective about who and where and when.
When Inara says you don't play a player, it's you don't play the solid brick castle wall either.
Yeah.
And that's Zoe.
I love
that. There would have been a castle wall between her and those wiles.
I mean, that would have been funny. I kind of wish we saw that.
What I wish we'd seen is her and Kaylee.
What do you think would have happened?
She would have seduced Kaylee, but can I switch topics briefly with Sara? I love Zoe's outfit. She looked nice and feminine instead of the soldier that they usually have her dressed in. What was your opinion on the costume, Sara?
Oh, I always love what Zoe's wearing. Like, I love that she is always that she is Soldier Woman, but with that always brings in soft touches. There's always some little, unless they're full on going to war, there's always some little touch of softness.
Yes, but today's was her most. Like, she had a casual jumper, light sweater. She looked very feminine today.
Hi.
I think she always looks feminine. It's just her version of feminine.
I agree with that.
Let me go ahead and jump in here, and we're gonna go over to Jack, and then we'll go to Cindy.
Hello, Ian.
Hello, Jack.
Hi. How are you?
I'm fine.
I just realized you changed your shirt.
No, I didn't.
I'm sorry. I'm a terrible best friend.
I was warm. You don't know.
You were. I'm sure you were. Look. Oh, and the top button's open. You got the chest.
All right.
I'm sorry.
Our Mrs. Reynolds.
Mm-hmm.
We're not here to talk about me. We're here to talk about our Mrs. Reynolds. All right, Jack. Everybody, give him a hand.
Thank you, Harris. Thank you very much. Thank you, lady. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. I wish I was prepared with notes, because again, I watched this with you like a week ago or so, and I just haven't had time the last couple of days to do a rewatch and take notes. But this one's fun. I'm a fan of the femme fatale kind of thing. I always have been. It's just fun and cool, and just going off of Sara C and some of the things she brought up. I love her heel turn. Like, I love it. I just think it's great. She goes from this like submissive meek to like an absolute badass. Like, it's just cool. I think. Sorry, I lost my train of thought there.
No, you're
okay. I just really liked her. And I like on my first viewing, I literally bought her original personality. I bought her charade, her ruse, and now that I've watched it again, like it's not obvious, but I'm like, oh, of course, this isn't real. This isn't a real person. Like, it is. I feel as though she is laying it on a bit too thick myself. But yeah, but she's great.
I think that might speak to Sara E's take that there's some parody going on because I can't remember my first run through of it or not, but I don't remember if I picked up on exactly what was happening until the turn either. And I'm not sure how that speaks to. At that point, I had watched Buffy and Angel multiple times, so I'm not sure how that speaks to my expectations of Whedon's writing, such that the idea that this would completely turn on its head didn't occur to me, and maybe it should have. You would think. Yeah, go ahead.
Saffron is basically like Fred in the cave, like very similar, like very just meek and the man's gonna save me, you know, like
handsome man saved me from the monsters.
Yeah. So, okay.
There's so many being a Whedonverse fan. There are so many triggering phrases.
It's difficult, and it's only getting more difficult. But god damn it. Let's see. I also love the scene with Wash being so in love with Zoe, but is also
it's
tempted.
Wonderful.
And to me, it's silly and funny, but I think it's sort of like, just because you're with someone doesn't mean that everybody else becomes unattractive to you. You know.
Of course.
I'm not saying, I'm not a fan of infidelity, of course, but I feel like it was a little more I don't know, realistic, I guess, to see him like struggling with it. But I love the fact that he's just like, I'm sorry, I can't. And it's just adorable and funny.
It's working on me, and I'm still going to make a choice otherwise. You know.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm attracted, and I'm still going to make a choice otherwise. Like.
Yeah, because like contrary to the belief of the 80s and then the 90s and whatnot, we are not slaves to our impulses. We can choose to be moral and do the right thing.
And the other thing too is that it's. I know we disagree on Bewitched, Bothered, and Bewildered, and in that case, we're dealing with either 16 or 17-year-old Xander. But the writers aren't. Like, the writers are adults, and they're still writing this bit where at the end, Xander gets a congratulations for not taking advantage of a roofied Buffy in that particular situation. And I don't think that deserves a high five, right? But in this episode, it's structured in a way where, having Wash acknowledge attraction, but just be like, nope, I'm making a choice and all of that just works a lot better.
I think it
feels more adult and commendable, where that was just weird.
Exactly. And I guess that's why it feels more sort of, I say realistic, but I don't know if realistic is necessarily the right word, but I think that scene plays better than if he just immediately shut her down and just like pretending like he wasn't even tempted.
We talked about it
plays better.
Sort of the cheesy romanticism of her lines in that sequence would give me the stars. My reading of that scene is always that she's Zoe doesn't thank him for not cheating. Exactly. It's like some things are just an expectation to not take advantage of people. Or to keep your word. But my reading of that is she's in a rush at that point. By downing Mal, the game has begun, and she's rushing in there, and it's sort of if this works on him, great. If it doesn't, I still get him in a vulnerable position to kick him in the back of the head. It was always I didn't need that dialogue to not be cheesy in that particular bit, because I like she had been working her bit on Mal up to that point, and in this particular one, it's just play the one or two cards that are still in the hand, and if not, play the kick him in the head. But that's just was my reading of the way that sequence played.
I liked it simply from the poetry, though. It was just hilarious, and just I don't know, I liked it. It's kind of let's see. I also like the scene with Inara and Saffron too. Just how
I think it's
like,
the best scene in the episode.
yeah, they're basically playing each other or trying to play each other.
Should we stop
and I
lying to each
love,
other?
yeah, yeah. And I had the thought that like I like how like that scene, and in the scene I believe it was in the last episode where you know, the aristocrat tries to use his status against her, and she's like, bitch, please, you're like, no companion is ever gonna work with you again. It's just not gonna happen. I love that.
Yeah.
And I love how like it's sort of her personality spits in the face of the way like Mal perceives her, or at least the way he treats her, because I think he knows. I think he knows that she's awesome. You know what I mean? That she's a badass.
Oh, of course.
Just great. But he sort of talks down to her a lot, and I like that the writing doesn't like stamp that, you know, it doesn't you know, we get shown that she's not the person that he makes her out to be.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've thought about sort of the themes woven into the tapestry of the entire show. But part of it is sort of everyone is scrabbling for freedom and control over their own futures. Mal's access to that is the ship, and the people he surrounds himself with. But Inara's access to that is her position, which gives her the power and freedom to sort of make her own choices. And every person's Simon's is being a doctor on the ship, but before that it was being a doctor within the Alliance. But it's sort of the trade-offs from one to the others, and Inara might be the most interesting examination of all of them, with the access to power that her job gives her, but the trade-off that comes along with it. And is there a trade-off, or is that purely from Mal's perspective?
Right, yeah.
You know, it's interesting stuff. But here we are halfway through your first time actually watching the series.
Yes. Yes.
How's your interest level? Do you feel like, what was your hook point with Buffy? I mean, some people are hooked from the first episode, but
no, it was also, you have to remember that I was like a 10, 11-year-old boy watching Buffy too. So look, I probably thought the first season was cooler than it actually is.
For you, yeah.
It was definitely the Angela stuff, like Angel losing his soul, and that just blew my mind, and I loved it from then on in, really. I mean, I enjoyed it previously up to that point, but I think that was the hook point. Firefly I'm enjoying it, and I definitely feel it's hooks in me, but I'm not in love with it yet. And that might change, and I'm still open to that. But yeah, I
never promised in love.
You never promised me love, Ian. You never did.
But I think when the final monologue is happening,
okay,
you and I will be watching that together, and
okay.
I'm gonna get up. Oh,
I think it's got a good chance. It's just, as you know, sci-fi is a hard sell film for me. So certain kinds of sci-fi are a hard sell, but this is definitely the sci-fi I struggle with is the really dry sci-fi, and this is far from that. Yeah.
Well, hard sci-fi. This is
hard sci-fi.
Yeah, this is more in the realm of sci-fi fantasy.
Yeah.
But I mean,
that's all I got though. Yeah.
All right, bud. Good deal.
Yeah. Cheers.
Let me go over to Cindy.
Hello.
Hello. How are you doing?
I have a little bit of a cold, so I'm a tiny bit hoarse. But I am really, really enjoying Firefly, so I have this group to thank for that.
Awesome. I know there's some people that are missing the Buffy discussions and I've mentioned we're going to get back to them when we're done with Firefly. I could pick up with Buffy season 6 and Angel season 3, but it definitely was my hope that fans of Buffy and Angel through these discussions and this group would dip in and hopefully find something they enjoy. So I'm really happy to hear you tell me that was the case for you.
Yeah. So in this piece, I love the dinner table. I love Zoe's reaction at the dinner table. I think that's just beautiful. I love to headcanon book, listening to Saffron's little speech in perverting the Bible, or not perverting the Bible, using the Bible in that way when she's trying to seduce Mal. I think that's hilarious.
Sort of what his take on it would have been.
Yeah. I really, really love that, like, you can tell that Mal absolutely hates that he's trying to do the right thing by rejecting her, and that Wash absolutely knows that he's doing the right thing by rejecting her. So I think that sets up a nice contrast. But, you know, who knew that Christina Hendricks could, like, fight down?
Yeah, the back spin kick attack on Inara always takes me by surprise in that little sequence. But pretty entertaining. And the other thing too is that, I mean, just sort of structurally, if every one of the crew members is a representation of a part of Mal's character, which I believe was the structure that Whedon was setting up with this, then Whedon does have Jane in him, you know, but is just simply making the choice to do opposite. And Whedon also has Wash in him, and Wash then is the more paragon representation of the reaction, which is nice to see. Sorry, there's a cat wanting to be let in the office behind me, so I apologize if that's getting picked up on the microphone.
Hello, Kitty. So I didn't know Christina Hendricks' work at that time. I only, became aware of her more around Mad Men. And so it was a nice little, like, oh, she can do some fighting. I thought that was really fun. But I absolutely love, I love the way that Inara picks up on it. And I agree with, maybe it was Sara C that said, you couldn't have had Saffron with the women, because the woman would have been like, no, so much no. So you see her interacting with the men because the men are perhaps a little bit more likely to fall for the feminine wiles than the other women.
I don't disagree with any of that.
The other thing that I thought we might have perhaps mentioned a little bit was when Saffron's discussing all of the terrible, terrible men that her women friends in the Maiden House got married off to. One of the things she said was blubberous.
Interesting.
I'm like, okay. Again, as we're talking about this woman who's actually very, very tiny being considered like plus size.
Right.
Especially, more so during that filming than perhaps she is now, but whatever.
It does. It's interesting that, the line is curious, and it makes you wonder about the casting, and it does make me think of some of the unfortunate stories I've heard about. And I'm terrible with name recall as well, Jen. If you're still here, still listening, Tara. I believe I've heard stories.
Benson.
Yes.
I believe I've heard stories of Amber Benson's casting being contentious because she's a different physical type than the other actresses that were on the show, and so Christina Hendricks does have an appearance in elsewhere in the Buffyverse, but that doesn't mean that was the reason that she got cast here. But it does make you wonder if how the casting worked out, given that particular line that you mentioned.
Yeah. I didn't love the cuts to the crew for the carrion ship, but I did think that the net was really cool.
Yeah.
And I like the callback to Vera.
There's some, frustrating though his legacy is proving to be. There are things about his writing and structure that I definitely appreciate, and several of them are the setups and payoffs in this one, and the way that certain setups are used to explore relationships. And I do love Vera as a joke actually having some sort of purpose later on down the line in the story, and Jane talking to her like a partner, I thought was a wonderful payoff. There are some good payoffs in this one for sure.
And then we get to the last scene that we have with Saffron, and that just didn't need to happen. Like, they needed to get an hour shuttle back, but the way that scene went down, I just bounce off that really hard.
Yeah, and I don't love Mal punching her in the face at all. No. I don't know why I don't think that worked ever, let alone even when the episode aired. Jack says that there have been other instances of Mal punching a woman in the face. I feel like that would stand out. I can't think of any other particular instances, but Jen pointed out that structurally, I feel like a couple of pieces could have been moved around in this, and that for sure, pointing that out feels a little unnecessary, where we could have had a little more time with Zoe or some of the other crew members, or we just didn't need that scene and the two guys on the carrion ship, as you said.
I don't know if they were trying to do a callback to the, if somebody's trying to kill him, you kill him right back. But
yeah, maybe.
Also, like, she was not a threat at that point.
No.
So
yeah,
I don't like it.
Just makes him look terrible.
Makes him look terrible.
Yeah, in that particular regard. And as the center of the show, that ain't great. Yeah. Well, is there anything else you want to throw out about the episode?
No, those are my pieces. I may have some more to say when we get to Ariel.
Sounds good.
My very favorite Zoe line ever.
Have you finished yet, or are you? So you're a little ahead. I'm trying to make Jack watch a little ahead too, because I think knowledge of the next episode or two reflects well. Have you finished, or are you just ahead as well?
I finished Firefly. I haven't watched Serenity yet. I can't make myself because I know it's going to happen.
Yeah. Well, maybe watch it with us when we do the rewatch on stream. Well, anyway, I love hearing that you're new to it and enjoying it. I appreciate you jumping on.
Yeah, glad I got a chance to jump on tonight. Thanks.
Before I go over to the Lady Eternal, Sara C had one other thing she said she wanted to mention, and I forgot to go back to you.
Yeah, no, it's cool. Well, the one was the question. I think I articulated the question. I remembered to articulate the question I wanted to pose a little more, which is that I think the episode. It's interesting that the episode sort of cops out of answering, like, is Mal wrong for having given in to taking advantage of her? Because it then, she's evil. She's taking advantage of him, right? But it's like it's there's that, which I think is neat. But the main thing, the thing that actually made me want to say something is that there's the two beats between Mal and Inara I really like in this episode, because I think their dynamic is super fun. Is the desperate kiss as he's passed out. I think it's sweet that the one and only time they actually kiss is when
spoilers. Anyway, the one and only time they've kissed, but at this point,
Yeah, I just think it's nice that I think it's neat and in character of like how it's when there's literally defenses down, and when they can't acknowledge it. And I also like the really stupid beat at the end because like Mal's an idiot. And the reason I like that beat at the end is because at least it looked like Inara was down to talk about it. Remember,
Yeah.
he's like, you didn't just fall, did you? And she goes, no, I didn't. Like you know what I mean? Like this is like big. Like she's down to be like, okay. And then he bungles it. But I like that in that moment, she's kind of like, okay, let's do this.
Yeah, the thing
I just think I like it.
The thing I'm struck by is that the kiss occurs when he's debilitated, right? So her vulnerability and her defense. You mentioned her defenses are down in that moment because he's not attacking her. And
also like it's a moment of like concern of like,
of course, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
There's the drama of the moment. But I mean, from the perspective of their chemistry, like the Beatrice and Benedict of it all, there's so much combat between the two of them at all times that moment occurs because he's offline. Because it's sort of like Riley and Buffy kissing when they can't speak. You remove their ability to talk, and that's the moment when their defense mechanisms go away and actual intimacy occurs. It's not that elegant because it's rompy plot driven stuff, but still it's the thing that I was reminded of.
I like that. I like those moments.
Cool. Let me go over to Lady Eternal. Hello. Thank you for being the caboose.
Well,
that always sounds weird.
I don't have a problem with it at all.
All right, good deal.
Definitely don't have a problem with that at all. Gave the puppy time to settle back down after having woken up in the middle. My favorite moment out of this episode is actually it's a very tiny little moment. My very favorite moment out of this entire episode is right in the beginning at the big party when you just have that little clip of Wash and Zoe cuddling by the fire watching everybody. The way he's wrapped around her, the way that she's tucked into him, just the juxtaposition of them, an island unto themselves while everybody else is enjoying the celebration and all this other stuff. Just it's that one little tiny perfect shot. And it's my very favorite moment out of the entire episode. The rest of the episode, I go up and down on it. I really do. I love some pieces of it to death, and other pieces on rewatch, I'm just kind of like, okay, I'm just going to fast forward through this little bit right here.
I'm kind of, I feel like, I thought, oh, we've got the Once More with Feeling stream today, and I knew how it was going to go. And then a wide variety of unexpected opinions popped, and I love that. I thought that this episode was a little more renowned in the fan community than it has been in this community, and I think that's fun. I'm loving the variety of opinions today. But up and down on it. When you're up, you're what, and when you're down, you're what. What's the push and pull for you?
Well, the push and pull for me is that they were trying for something specific with Mal and Inara's relationship in this episode, and trying to move it forward and taking advantage of the idea of showing the audience at least that Inara was interested by having her kiss Mal out of relief. But I agree with Jennifer that the bitter jealousy rings a very sour note, considering the fact that, yes, if for someone whose entire life is about observing body language and behavior patterns and curating their own reactions accordingly, to not and Mal walking past her as he's saying, she and the thing that Saffron and I have in common is that neither one of us thinks this is funny. She heard that. It wasn't like he said that when she wasn't in the room, and he was clearly just absolutely aghast and wanting to have this, go away. And yet she's acting like he actually does secretly deep down want it. And it rings a sour note for me on that point, because her entire life is about watching people, and there's no hidden cues in any of his public behavior that signal that, oh, he really wants this little nubile girl after all.
It's really interesting. The thing I'm reminded of is like the things that you all have brought up today, I agree with. But I completely glanced them by as they were occurring in the episode, and I'm just thinking about why, for me, those things were just shrugged off. And I think it is the Shakespeare of it all. It's sort of like when you watch a musical and people start singing and nobody bats an eye. No one goes, why is the waiter singing about the fish? This doesn't happen in real life. It's the conventions of the musical genre. And I'm thinking about the one that occurs to me is in Much Ado About Nothing. Beatrice and Benedict have been mean and spiteful and cruel to each other. And the way that their friends say we're going to get them to hook up is by having them overhear conversations saying Benedict is madly in love with her. And immediately she throws away all of years of adversarial conduct and says, I will love thee. And it's a convention of, I think, this particular kind of story that has been normalized to me through the rompy Shakespearean flavor of it that I think is going on here. And I mean, like, the Beatrice and Benedict of it all is all over it with the two of them from the beginning. But arguably that's any romantic comedy that where the characters begin combative and move on. So I don't know. But then again, is it a convention of that I'm just simply like making excuses for because I'm overly familiar with that kind of thing, or am I making excuses for bad storytelling? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question. Because again, hearing everything you guys said today, I agree with you. Her jealousy feels so on the nose to me.
I mean, and I don't say that it's bad storytelling so much as it's kind of it's one of the things that is, and I've highlighted this in other streams that we've all done. It's storytelling to service the plot versus the character.
Right, which ordinarily I hate. I'm the first to call out on that, but in this kind of story, it apparently I'm a more forgiving.
And that's, a YMMV thing. But for me, it rang just a very sour note. But I love that when she gets down there and it's the relief, and that moment was genuine. That moment was very, she's so incredibly relieved to find that Saffron hasn't poisoned him, that he's still alive, because she had said, I'm Malcolm Reynolds' widow, giving the impression that she's poisoned him or somehow otherwise murdered him instead of just knocking him out. And then it's you stupid son of a... And her goofball, Marina Baccarin, just, I so wanted to hug her for her acting in that scene, in the scenes afterwards. I hit my head, but like Wash did, but Mal went through that.
It's so adorable.
It's screwball.
I got her like Wash.
Screwball.
Yeah. But she plays it. I think it plays.
It is. It's beautiful. It reminds me very much of a wide-eyed Katharine Hepburn in Bringing Up Baby. It just that kind of screwball antic. Like, it's so funny. the big wide-eyed, no, I'm comfy. You don't have to examine me. I'm okay. Well, she's clearly still high. It's just, and I love everything about Wash's behavior in this, including the fact that, everybody else is starting to be on the turn, and Zoe is suspecting that Saffron is trouble and that there's something else going on, because she's clearly she tipped her hand to Zoe with the glass thing. That wasn't, Zoe picked up really fast that wasn't shy, maidenly, just born yesterday sexy behavior, but there's something underneath there that's a problem. And Wash, and a book is like child molesters and people who talk in the theater, which was a brilliant touch, by the way. The fact is, people who talk in the theater. But, so they're all like on the turn, like starting to either turn against Mal or turn against Saffron or both. And meanwhile, Wash is like, when did this stop being hysterical right now? How is nobody still laughing at the fact that Mal had no clue he was getting married last night? Like, how is this still not funny?
I never really thought about the book line, but people who talk in the theater might be like the strawberries, might be a hidden clue towards Book's actual background, because how much experience do most of these people have with theaters that you're not allowed to talk in? And him having that element in there. I mean, I realize it's just a joke, but I like, now that I'm kind of headcanoning that as a level of sophistication as to his background that might be revealing of something. I don't know. We'll find out.
And the fact that Jane's like, I'd love to know how a preacher knows so much about crime, because Book is the one that knows what the trap is, and is explaining all of the ways that the trap works. And I actually didn't mind the cutaway to the guys in the trap so much, because that explained why she targeted their ship. Because you spend so much time in the previous episodes talking about how a Firefly is a piece of Lussa, and it's a piece of junk, and it's only fancy to people who skin rabbits like they're just ripping a package of Doritos open. And then all of a sudden you've got this character that's explaining the Firefly is worth more as a whole than it is in pieces. It's more than the sum of its parts.
Sounds like theme work.
Sounds like theme work. And so I didn't mind that so much. But the scene where the bullet hits the glass and they have that moment where they look at each other before the glass breaks because they know what's about to come, always leaves me queasy.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. The vacuum of space stuff is, that's what I'm saying is that, especially in this kind of episode, the stuff with those two guys, you can have the two of, if the two of them pop out of that and we've not met them before and you haven't had that scene on the ship, then they're kind of computer animated-y whatevers. But the fact that we spent that little bit with them, when the glass gets blasted open, it adds a layer of queasy darkness to this that feels dissonant compared to the rest of it.
It's that inevitability of, by the way, you're working literally in space. You get one crack in the glass, and it's, and of course, not. It's a little bit of leaning into what we're going to see in a couple of episodes.
Sure. Yeah, I know that Whedon and Tim Minear originally thought that the show would be sort of a place for doing stories considerably darker than they had been able to do before. But then you do the rompy comedic stuff, and it doesn't seem like the place for it, The other thing I was thinking about, too, that is sort of tonal departure when we dismiss it, when it works, when it doesn't. The Zeppo. The Zeppo is talk about genre. That's not specifically a genre switch there so much. It is playing with surreal in a way that we generally don't. We generally choose to just take for granted and allow for. People love that episode, but that episode, the surreal aspects is because it's grounded in Xander's perspective of what's actually happening. Where this one maybe doesn't go far enough with that. So maybe if it had leaned into the genre tropes a little bit more, some of the stuff where it lost some of us here might not have been as hard, because the Zeppo goes hard on those things, and it works because of it.
And I think that the only reason this probably didn't go so hard is I'm going to apparently just keep harping on this every time I'm on the stream, is the incomplete storytelling of it all. The fact that they were planning to have multiple seasons, and they probably had no expectation that they wouldn't, because of the success of Buffy and Angel behind them. They were figuring they had some lead-in freight, but they had so much interference that it never happened.
Yeah, maybe if this were a season 3 episode, we'd all feel a little bit differently about it. But as a season 1 episode, maybe it stands out a little bit more as strange. But I do need to wrap up. Is there anything else you want to throw out about the episode?
I think the only other thing that really stands out to me about this episode is just the way that they played with the dynamics, trying to play with gender dynamics, trying to play with gender role expectations and things like that. It was a fascinating attempt to explore that in a different way than they did with Buffy and Angel, including exploring the whole, wayfish girl that can suddenly kick everybody's butts. And I did martial arts for most of my life, so I actually know how tough that spinning kick is to pull off. But I think that for me, the thing that goes unnoticed in all of that is the little character tidbit about Mal's upbringing. That he was raised on a cattle ranch by his mother and 40 hands.
Yeah. Yeah, and how quickly he moves past it, and she's one of the only people that has asked him about it.
And I think that speaks a lot to his character, and a lot of kind of what laid some of the seeds for who he's become in the aftermath of the war.
Yeah.
But what was the Maggie Walsh line? I suspect it's the influence of a lack of a strong male role model.
Oh yeah, I was gonna go ouch, but no, that wasn't the line you were talking about.
Yeah, but being raised by 40 different hands on his mama's ranch, that had to have been a very distinctive experience for him.
The other thing I love about that line, Lani and I just finished Buffy season 5, Angel season 2 on our rewatch. We've started season 3. One of my favorite lines in the whole show, I've realized, I love a powerfully delivered half line. The fact that a half line can be powerful is remarkable storytelling to me. It's a remarkable combination of storytelling and performance. And the line I'm talking about is, I know that I'm a monster, but you treat me like a man. And that line ending there, and everything it says about his character and the moment between the two of them, it doesn't need to be finished. There's so much meaning imbued in that line, And I think that's astonishing. A half line that can be powerful in that way. And that scene is a shade of that. That scene with Mal and Saffron talking. He has a really good half line where we get a read on character depth and experience that, a completed line might not even have allowed us, but there's something about what is unsaid that can be more powerful in that moment that I really love.
And it also, especially because he cuts himself off because he's realized he's saying it. When you watch it on rewatch, it's one of those very subtle signals that for all of their interaction, Inara doesn't use her companion wiles to get to him.
Yeah.
Because Saffron was using her companion training to get to him in any way that she could and draw him out. But he's never said that to anybody before, which means that not just the rest of the crew, like not just Kaylee hasn't just bubbly asked or anything else. Inara has never tried to soften the way that he acts towards her or manipulate the way that he acts towards her by using her companion wiles to draw out information about him.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's an interesting comparison.
It's interesting. Yeah. Even if it doesn't work for you, there's a ton of more than meets the eye going on in the episode. But let me go ahead and wrap up there. Let everyone get some sleep. Bye, Sara. 2 weeks, Jamestown. That's it. That's all I got for you. I appreciate you guys. I appreciate your time. Thank you, everyone in the stream.
Absolutely.
We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Cheers, friends.
Thanks.
Bye,
It was
guys.
fun. Good night.
Bye.